Hi everyone, I'm Adam, and thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. We're gonna preview a card from the new Dominion expansion, Dominion Empires. So today we got to see from Donald's previews, we got to see 3 cards with VP tokens. VP tokens are coming back, which is great. It was like the #1 thing that I wanted to see, and it happened, although I'm not going to kid myself and say I actually had anything to do with it. Kitty is playing with the cord, and I don't want that to happen. Sorry, buddy. So the card I'm going to be previewing today is also a VP token card, and here we go. So here's the card. The card is Farmer's Market. It's a $3 action gathering. In case you didn't see the previews for the action gathering that Donald displayed, I'll go ahead and tell you what gathering means. Gathering means that you can put stuff on the pile and then you get the stuff sometimes. That's really what gathering means. Sometimes there's tokens or bits on the pile. So Farmer's Market will put VP tokens on the pile. So I'll go ahead and read it. It gives you +1 buy every time you play it. And then if there are 4 VP tokens or more on the supply pile, you take the tokens and you trash the card. My webcam got blurry. And then, otherwise, you add a token to the pile, and then you get money for every token that's on the pile. So you get a buy every time, and then you get the first time a Farmer's Market is played, you get $1, and then the second time you get $2, and then 3, then 4. And then the 5th time, you get the buy, you don't get any money, and then you get 4 VP tokens, and then you trash the card. Okay, so Farmer's Market has the potential to generate up to 40 VP over the course of the game. Currently, with all the cards that we all know about, there's not a way, aside from Rogue or Grave Robber, to have Farmer's Market generate more than 40 VP over the course of the game. So, you know, a lot of these VP token cards, this was less true of the ones that exist now, but it's gonna, you know, it's gonna be a lot more true with Empires because there's a lot more ways to score points. You kind of have to do some math and figure out how many points can you actually expect to get, and then you figure out how many points the other sources of points are going to get, and you have to add them together to kind of see what's viable. You're actually going to have to do math before the game starts, and that's something that I didn't really have to do before Empires. So that's a thing. So let's talk about the card a little bit. You play the card 5 times, and it does 5 different things, and so there's sort of an average effect that you can kind of assign to the card, and it makes it easier to compare it to other cards. So I mocked up this little photo here. This is the average Farmer's Market. Come on. Go away, this thing. I don't want that thing. Anyway, this is the average Farmer's Market. It's adorable. It's in Comic Sans. And it gives you a buy. It gives you $2 since you get $10 over 5 plays, so it's an average of $2. And it's an average of 0.8 VP tokens, which is super great, because that makes sense. And then when you play it 5 times, you gotta trash it. So, there are 2 comparisons that are pretty easy to make here. The first one is with Woodcutter. Woodcutter is Farmer's Market without the VP bits, and it doesn't make you trash it. Okay, and there are a lot of. I mean, I rarely play Woodcutter more than 5 times in a game, so that's something. Also, the other comparison is to Monument. This is a lot like Monument, only it gives you 0.2 VP tokens less every time you play it, and it also gives you a buy. It also costs less, but it has the trashy bit as well. So, I think the card compares pretty favorably to both Farmer's Market, to both Woodcutter and Monument, and that's not really the biggest deal in the world, because the 2 are kind of middle-of-the-road cards. But there's a whole other facet to the card that involves dancing around whether or not you get the VP tokens or the opponent gets the VP tokens, and maybe a little bit trying to get more money than your opponent out of it. So normally when you're playing Farmer's Market, what you really, really want to happen is you want to get the VP tokens. Like, that's like the best possible outcome. I would, money is great, but most of the time I would rather have the VP. So like, there's this dance around, I want to play the farmer's market that gets me the VP tokens, and I would rather my opponent not be able to do that. And in some cases, you're going to have to give your opponent more money in order to enable that to happen. So how can you do the dance better than your opponent? Well, the first thing that's, I think, kind of obvious is you want to build a deck that can play more farmers markets than your opponent. If you can play more, if I can play 3 farmers markets and my opponent can only play 2 on a turn, then I can just leave the pile with 2 VP tokens on it at the end of my turn, and then my opponent can't get the VP tokens on his turn, and he can't stop me from doing it on my turn, assuming I can play all of the farmers markets on my turn. So that's really good, and that actually mimics the endgame of Dominion a little bit, kind of, sort of ish. So that also, I think this is kind of funny. It leads to some hilarious situations where, let's say, you can only play 1 farmer's market per turn. If you're in a 2-player game and those points actually mean a lot, like say there's no village or something, then you want to leave the pile at 3 VP tokens. So if your opponent plays their farmer's market, then you can take the VP from them. But you don't want to play it yourself. So like, there are these hilarious games where you put this farmer's market in your deck and you never actually play it. You just want the threat of playing the farmer's market for the VP so that your opponent doesn't play it. So while that's a little bit rare, it can happen and it's funny. The other interesting situation that comes up with farmer's market is when you need it for the plus buy, and that can arguably be more important than dancing around the victory point pile. This normally happens when there's no other plus buy on the board. So in order to just get your, oh yeah, I should show the real card again. Thank you. So in order to get your buys and increase the capabilities of your deck, a lot of times you're just going to play it and kind of hope the VPs land in your favor, but you'd rather expand the capabilities of your deck than getting 4 points. But this is a big deal to get these points, because let's say you're uncontested. Every time you manufacture a situation where you can get 4 VP, that's a 4 VP swing, but if you can snipe it from your opponent, you can look at it as an 8 VP swing. So getting the cards that allow you to play more farmers markets in a turn can be very powerful, and you can prioritize the buys a little more, and it gives you money to spend on it too, because that's good. I think the biggest synergy with a card like Farmer's Market is going to be the throne rooms and the King's Courts and the Royal Carriage, and hey, the crown's new, great. There's a question in the chat, how can there be more than 4 tokens on it? Right now there's no way to do that, but sometimes you word cards in a smart way, so that just in case something comes along, you are set. So like, it's always defined like what to do here. So that's fine. And maybe it matters for future cards. Great. Let me just look over and make sure. I thought there was one more thing I wanted to mention. Oh yeah. So the last thing I wanted to say was there's one particular synergy that I think is a little more indirect, a little more subtle, and it has to do with terminal payload cards. So let's say you've decided, okay, I want to go for the VP tokens that Farmers Market offers, right? I want to go for this, and I feel like the VP tokens are enough, so I'm going to go for Farmers Market. Okay, and whether or not I'm contested by my opponent is sort of independent of this, but you're going to build this deck that kind of gets the VP tokens first, because Farmer's Market, when you play it, you get money in buys, and that allows you to buy other cards that are good to put in your deck, right? But then, eventually what's going to happen is your farmers markets are going to get trashed, right? The 40 VP token, quote, bank is going to expire, and all the farmers markets are going to be in the trash. And let's say there's no rogue or grave robber to enable this to go infinite, which, by the way, is a big freaking deal, right? I mean, you're breaking the thing that allows the VP tokens to be finite, which is an important design consideration when you're making these cards. You either make them finite or slow enough that green cards can possibly outrace them. But anyway, that's a tangent. But so you're going to be getting these farmers markets into the trash are no longer in your deck, and now all of a sudden you've got this deck that was able to play these terminals, and the terminals are no longer in it. So being able to trash the farmers market and then inject these terminal payload cards pretty much instantly without having to build up is a really good synergy. You're getting points that improve the quality of your deck, and then all of a sudden now I've got this big terminal payload. So like Bridge and Goons are the canonical terminal payload cards, but really anything like an attack or something that just draws more cards, like even terminal draw is a very good thing to put in place of this, because then maybe you want to get the terminal draw and then like treasures are your payload or whatever, or terminal draw in the case of now it's time to start greening, so I need to be able to draw those green cards. So that's a thing. Yeah, there's a little bit of confusion in the chat here about the average amount of money. So in the average, I gave it $2. Yeah, you play it 5 cards and you get 5 different effects. So there's the $1, $2, $3, $4 effects, and then the 5th one doesn't give you any money, but you take the VP tokens. You get the buy every time, but the money is only there the first 4 of the times. What do I think about Farmers Market? Farmers Market, along with a lot of other things that are happening in Empires, it's sort of part of this big group of cards that really, it's one of my favorite ways that the game gets changed when Empires comes out, and it has a lot to do with there being different ways to actually win the game. A lot of times you want to build these decks that have fantastical ways of buying provinces. And so the cards, like the alt VP cards, like Colony or Fairgrounds or Gardens or Duke Duchy or something like that, or even Distant Lands, to provide a more recent example. Like, these are ways that make the game feel much more different on a fundamental level. It's like not only what I'm doing in the game is different, but how I'm winning the game is different. And so these ways of scoring points are different ways of winning the game. And that's super fun, right? And now that all of these new ways of winning the game, i.e. new ways of scoring points, are going to be introduced to the game, the comparisons between them all are interesting to make. Normally, a card like this has a finite number of VP, but, I mean, we saw Groundskeeper today, which could potentially provide... I don't want to say an unbounded amount of VP, but much more, to the point where you don't just put a number on it and use that number in your calculations. But that has a lot to do with how much piles are going to be contested in a game. So the fact that this happens is fun. It provides you more things to think about before the game even begins, and more things to just compare different payloads of cards, which is something that... I don't think was getting stale in Dominion, but the added variety is something that's very refreshing to me. So I'm a big fan. Rad Hazard 1 is now following me on Twitch. Thank you for that. So anyway, I sort of wanted to interact with the chat a little bit more by this point. I know you guys had answered each other's questions a decent amount, but if you guys have any questions that didn't get answered, or you want to just ask again, or how do you feel, like, what do you think my opinion is? You hate the card? We can talk about that for a little bit. I have a little bit more time that I had set aside. After I conclude the stream, I'm going to go post on Board Game Geek and Reddit, and I'm going to post my article. I wrote up a little article which really covers the same ground as all of the stuff that I just said. So D4 and D Lion says you can make a deck like King, King, Farmer's Market, Grave Robber. So this is like a golden deck, right? I think with golden you can make somewhat of a golden deck with Rogue or Grave Robber, although I mean a lot of golden decks, even with Bishop, like there's the canonical 5-card golden deck that's like Bishop, Province, Gold, Silver, or whatever, just Gold, Silver, $8 Bishop and Province in your hand. And, like, you trash Province, you gain a Province every turn. And, like, that's fine. That's a good card. And if there's strong trashing, it's way better than big money. On the other hand, I find myself actually kind of rarely building decks like that because a variant where you draw more cards and maybe play more bishops to get more points per turn is a lot better most of the time. And then it turns out that normally you just get a points lead and your deck is better, so you have more control over the end game, so you're not in this kind of infinite cycle of playing the cards. And I imagine decks like that, I mean, any deck that relies on VP tokens as its source is going to do that for some finite amount of time. And the better you can make your deck at the end of it, the more flexibility you're going to have to end the game on your terms, which is a stronger thing to have overall. I mean, the whole point of why VP tokens are good is that you don't make your deck worse while you score points. And the canonical golden decks with no draw take advantage of that on a fundamental level, but that can be expanded upon. And I think Farmer's Market is a really good case of that, especially because of that direct competition aspect with your opponents. One other thing I wanted to say is in a 3-player game, a lot of the time the control you get over the pile is relinquished. So while you want to play more Farmer's Markets, the dance is less important than just kind of playing more Farmer's Markets and seeing what happens. Let's see. Lookout pun. Thank you, Rad Hazard, for subscribing. The trashing interactions can be interesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to be quite as simplistic as Bishop Fortress. It's going to be a little more interactive than that. So I'm pretty optimistic about that. It seems like getting 4 coins in a buy will sometimes be worth maybe giving your opponent the VP. So I think that applies very much in big money games. So like Farmer's Market improves big money, right? I mean, it improves big money very similarly to Monument. I think that's the easiest comparison to make. So like when you're playing big money, you absolutely track your opponent's Farmer's Market. Like you want to be able to, like most terminal non-drawing cards in big money, you just want to be able to play one every turn, but try and not have them collide. So like 2 or 3 of them, right? Depending on your size of your deck and whatever. And so I think that applies to Farmer's Market, although maybe there's a little incentive to err on the side of collision as opposed to I just want to have good turns all the time. So like if you have more Farmer's Markets, yeah, you're just probably going to play it, right? I mean, money in a buy is super great in a big money deck. So that's important. Bishop Golden deck is better than big money even without strong trashing, though. I mean, in a 1-card kingdom, I'm sure you go for Bishop, yes. You are correct. I don't know about full Golden deck, though. I'm not sure. That doesn't mean I disagree. I just don't know. Seems like riskier payload than Monument, which is always hard to be your main source of VP. Were you often able to use this card as your main payload? Yeah, Monument is quite slow, and this card does suffer from the same thing. Like, getting a deck that can play lots of Monuments every turn takes a really long time, because it's hard to play lots of the same copy of Terminal Payload. That's why, like, Bridge and Goons are so ridiculous when you play a lot of them. It's because it's hard to do it, right? If you can build a deck that does that, well, you're in great shape and you should win. And so Farmer's Market can be viewed as a terminal payload, but a terminal payload that also synergizes with other terminal payload cards, which is super great. Seems really good in a draw your deck engine. Yeah, I mean, most terminal payload is, and this is definitely not an exception. In fact, this probably is a little stronger than normal in that case. I know you like Opportunity, Symmetry, and Dominion. Do you feel these cards take some of that away or no? I don't. The one that really gets me is there's one card, and whoever gets that card wins the game. So you want to get that one card. Like, I don't like that. The way Farmer's Market is, there's certainly a lot of skill involved in how you can manipulate the pile and play more Farmer's Markets to tip things in your advantage. Like, I don't expect to get 100% of the VP tokens here in a game if I'm playing better than my opponent. But I certainly expect to come out ahead. Like, if I win the jackpot split 6-4, like, that's 8 points. That's more than a province. If I win it 7-3, I can lose the province split. Math. 4, 16. I can lose the province split 5-3 and be just fine. That's a big deal. Based on your experience, are the VP cards we saw today more often a strategy unto themselves, a la Goons, or add-on to a more standard strategy? So we saw, what did we see today? We saw Groundskeeper, Temple, and what was the other one we saw today? Oh, there's Farmer's Market. I don't want to screw up. Oh, and Chariot Race. So here's the thing. Being a playtester, I got to see a little bit into the mind of Donald X, and he is a genius. Like, he's amazing, right? I'm a little bit of a fanboy. Wero, you're just going to have to be patient. Keep your pants on, buddy. So, when you're designing a card like this, and in fact, even when you're designing other cards that don't use VP tokens, he's always very cautious about breaking the rule of scoring points makes your deck worse, in terms of drawing cards, actually. So, in the case of Groundskeeper, I feel like that plays pretty similarly to Monument. Like, you can't usually win the game by just getting Groundskeeper. Like, it's very slow, and it still requires you to put green cards in your deck that you have to deal with. And so it's very interactive. With Chariot Race, which I wanted to point this out, Chariot Race was one of the first cards that got finished. And I don't know how many people play Hearthstone, but like Chariot Race is like the joust mechanic from Hearthstone. And that was from the Grand Tournament, which was like, that's 2 expansions ago or 1 expansion ago. But Chariot Race was done first. So they announced Joust and Hearthstone. I'm like, oh, hey, look, it's Chariot Race. And I was amused. But anyway, Chariot Race is really unreliable. It's interactive with your opponent's deck, and it's very hard to set up, especially because it draws cards. So, like, you have to play it before you draw your deck, and sometimes you just can't do it. It's on the bottom. And so it's really difficult, and it's really interactive. And, I mean, I've tried playing strategies that revolve around Groundskeeper, and Chariot Race is the only source of VP, and I just lose. Like, it's like Phaeton, right? If you go for just Phaeton, you're going to lose to the guy who goes for Phaeton and Province. And these VP cards were designed to be similar to that, to be more interactive with the Kingdom, because, like, I don't know, maybe Donald X learns things as he designs cards and sees what's popular, and it's more fun to play. What about Temple? Temple's the other gathering card, and actually, like, the gathering cards, you know, there's something that drives them to end the game, right? So this one, it trashes the farmers markets. And temples, you have to gain the temple to get it. So, like, there's this bounded number of victory points. And, like, once you exhaust that, what do? Well, you try and score more points, right? So, like, of course you have to do something else. Goons can kind of be an exception, but like, still you're driving the game towards the end, but, like, goons can be your sole source of VP. Bishop, when unmirrored, can be, but, like, okay, 40 points is more than a lot of people score in most Dominion games, so that's a thing. So the VP taking play of Farmer's Market is similar to Distant Lands. You get 4 VP, and the card leaves your deck. That's true. Yeah, that's actually pretty true. I think Hearthstone stole that from Magic. Anyway, yeah, I mean, it's a fun mechanic. Like, it's fun to play Chariot Race. I love the card, and so, like, it's going to be a popular card. And it doesn't have to be good. Like, Chariot Race is like a mediocre card. It's a support card for Engine, you know. The Gathering type confirms that theory. I don't know what the theory is. Oh, for deck manipulation. Great. Yeah, so I'm pretty much caught up from the chat. I'll stick around for another couple minutes to take any last questions, and I'll hang around the chat for a little longer, but I will go ahead and I will submit to Reddit, or no, I'm going to submit to Board Game Geek my written article. So it's now up on Board Game Geek, so Wero, I'll put the link in the chat for you. That's for you, buddy. Okay, and I'm going to put this on Reddit as well. Let me do that real quick. Okay, so those are done. That's done. At worst, Chariot Race is a cantrip, which would be useful for Horn of Plenty. I mean, it's cantrip, right? Cantrips are great. It's not a mix between Farmer's Village and Market. Farming Village and Market. Oh, the name. So, like, Market usually means plus buy, right? So a lot of cards with plus buy have Market on them. That's a thing. As for farmers, I think the only other there's farmland, farmers market, farming village. I got nothing. Uh, Chariot race definitely feels like you need strong trashing. Yeah, you need strong trashing is like a minimum requirement to make Chariot race viable. It's a tough card to enable. You actually need quite a lot of support for it, which is great, right? It's great. It's a ruined market with farmers. Very good. All right. Well, if you heard the dog barking, that means the wife is home. Oh, hi, kitty cat. I'm gonna bring the kitty cat on stream one more time to say goodbye. He was lounging comfortably in his cat tree, and I have disturbed him from his slumber, which he is not pleased with. But whatever. Look at this cat, isn't he adorable? He's so cute. What are we gonna do with him? Oh, he's so cute. Anyway, thanks for watching, and hope you enjoy the Dominion happiness. It's been a pleasure. It's been a great honor. Thank you, Donald, for letting me do this. I'm gonna shut up and cut the stream now. So